Ladies and gentlemen, Don Debar is with their contributor. Pasta to go. Bring him on in.
Hello. What's up?
Get the right shot. No.
There you go. Ah.
Hey.
What was that poking me in the eye?
Sorry, you must have a headache. All right, listen. So, Don, I don't know how you want to approach this, right?
Well,
Siri got out of line. I don't know how you want to approach this, right? Let's just really quickly, because I do want to play one clip before you get started.
Okay.
And let's play the one clip that just says so much. When you see this here, I don't know what to think.
Here's a station just for you on Apple.
You believe me? All right, Don. So that is when the 60 billion, right? The $61 billion got approved to go to Ukraine, a war we've been funding for God knows how long, a country that we essentially backdoored, used as a proxy against the Russians, where every single member of the Democratic Party voted to fund that particular war. They can always, there's a few of them, the squad members, the ones who want to say, well, at least they recognize everything that's going on in Israel. Yeah, but you can't recognize the deaths that's going on. Not even Barbara Lee, Don. So what is your opinions when you see this right out of the gate? When you see it coming?
First thing, if you look at the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA,
yes,
Section 611, subsection H, it refers to the section has all different types of parties who are acting as agents for foreign nations, foreign governments. Under H, the term publicity agent includes any person who engages directly or indirectly in the publication or dissemination of oral, visual, graphic, written, or pictorial information or matter of any kind, including publication by means of advertising, books, periodicals, newspapers, lectures, broadcasts, motion pictures, or otherwise. I would say making sure that you were videotaped and on the news waving the flag of a foreign country on the floor of the House of Representatives would qualify, and therefore subject these people to the filing requirement to file as an agent of a foreign government. That's the first impression I have. The second one,
that's an interesting point of view, by the way. I just want to say that's interesting. You're actually saying, 1 second, Jed, the first one is it somewhat of an illegal act what they did?
Well, if they don't file under FARA,
okay, they have to file as an agent of
a foreign government.
Does there have to be money ties, or just
they're acting as a publicity agent?
I see.
While they're approving, $100 billion or $60 billion. I don't know exactly how you disclose all that.
Yeah.
But so,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
And they're lobbying their colleagues.
Yeah.
At the site of a vote on a $60 billion disbursement with oral, visual, graphic, written, or pictorial information, blah, blah, blah.
Down
blah,
the list. Blah. Yeah. What's the second one? What's the second point?
Second thing, I'm reminded of, I don't remember which book it was in, something that Kurt Vonnegut wrote when he was referring to the ceremony around, presidents with Hail to the Chief and all that, when he referred basically to the rituals as being similar and they could be as easily substituted with a chimpanzee in a suit with an organ grinder with someone playing some kind of, fanfare music. That looked the same to me. You could put chimpanzees in, fashion, designer clothes and hand them the little wet, white, blue and yellow flags, and they would enthusiastically wave them.
But here's the question. I got a question.
It's only 5 bananas, a month instead of whatever the hell we pay them.
I got a question. Zookeeper Don, useful idiots or more just paid propagandists? How many of these people know exactly what they're doing, or are they just kind of going with the flow? I think that people kind of question, is
I mean,
AOC
look,
really that naive? Is she really that to say that, just to repeat these lies over and over again? I mean, she might be even more cunning than some, but I mean,
who's
most
she?
of these people here, and the ones in the media too, Don, that repeat
Who's
the
she?
same rhetoric,
I don't,
useful idiots or paid propagandists. Go ahead.
but who is she? I don't know who you're talking about.
AOC.
Oh, well,
Oh, you didn't hear AOC? Well, did you hear AOC with her
no,
number one?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, she needs the number one thing that she needs to take care of, right? We have to take our number one mindset should be around Ukraine. That's what our main focus should be, on Ukraine, when it
Well,
comes to foreign policy. I mean, literally said that we played it this morning. Just
I got you.
ridiculous. We can get it up. We'll play it towards the end later on. But
I think that's the gist of it. So look,
yeah.
the purpose of the U.S. military activity in Ukraine, they state it. The Pentagon says it. The State Department says it. The White House says it when someone not on medication speaks. That leaves out the president and what's his main spokesperson. But the rest of them, they're pretty authoritative when they speak on this stuff. And they all state that the purpose of this is to inflict some sort of strategic defeat on Russia that is going to basically, cage it in, and keep it out of the international arena, and to stop it from doing things like we've seen Russia doing in Northwest Africa, for example, and other places. I mean,
but most people.
I'm sorry.
Most people understand. I think the populace understands. I mean, I think they almost know, right, that the majority of people, they don't care about this anymore. They look at it as a money laundering scheme. They don't want to see $61 billion of their money going to Ukraine. I mean, it's just,
right.
Maybe there might be more of a public, even still, I think there's some people who've dug in deep to stand by Israel no matter what they do. And that's really a shame. But I mean, most of the people I believe in this country are like, Ukraine, enough with that stuff. Tell Zelensky to go away. We
got two different things operating here. You've got policies, geostrategic policy. I don't know who makes it. It's obviously not Biden, but it's supposed to be coming from the executive branch.
Council of Foreign Relations has more of a say, I think.
Yeah, and Langley, and who the hell knows who else.
No,
but somebody's making policy, very definitely. And the policy is to make war with Russia in a way that debilitates Russia's ability to project power. And also in the hope that, I mean, they declare this also with that Helsinki group, that they'd like to cause a crisis inside Russia that causes the collapse of the government. And they would like to break up Russia into like a dozen constituent small nation states that they can manage. Somebody is pushing all of this stuff to do that. There are people, I'm certain, from the floor of the Congress to the delivery guy in Kiev that accepts whatever they send there, to the Swiss banker that catches whatever falls out of the plane on the way to Ukraine, to the dock, in New York City or Washington or wherever, where they ship this stuff out of. Everybody along that food chain, and particularly the arms manufacturers who get the bulk of the money, this is lifeblood to them. It's the purpose of being in government, which is to have control of the checkbook and make sure that the payees are filled in by you. This is another $100 billion tranche. Okay, we've seen a couple of $100 billion go out already. This is in addition to the $800 or $900 billion defense budget annually. So that's like 2.4 trillion since this war started in Ukraine in 2022. This money's in addition to that $2.4 trillion. Everybody that can get a taste of that, as they say in The Godfather, who can wet their beak, they're diving in up to their shoulders into this. And so when you're voting, whatever power they can wield or bring to bear on the Congress, whatever influence they can, people like AOC and others are feeling that too. And who knows who's getting their beak wet and how much. That's not something that we'll know, but we know that there's $100 billion that's leaving the United States, or at least leaving the coffers of the U.S. government, and
Yep.
it's not going to be available to us for housing, food, education, healthcare,
It
etc.
bothers everybody on the political spectrum too, Don. Not just the, like, all right, so all those people who want stuff to be spent at home. Let's say the people who want more central planning and socialist entities, put money into education, put it into healthcare, put it in this and that. When you send money over across seas, it pisses off a lot of conservatives because they believe you're creating all this money and devaluating their money. So nobody likes the fact that it's going over there. But isn't it important? And the reason why I like to do these shows more than anything, and I think it's going to be really important to do this, is because we have to understand who is screwing us, right? And I think when we're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think people have to understand, no matter where you're at on the political spectrum, right, left, whatever your motive is, if you say something that's going to push back against the war machine, the treatment that they give you is just awful. Let's take a look really quickly at Marjorie Taylor Greene and what she had to say about this funding of this war. And amen to somebody saying, okay, we're going to take this speaker out. I didn't even expect this much from this speaker, right? But everything is behind him, comes from Israel. The TikTok ban comes from Israel. They were sick and tired of being abused on TikTok. So many Palestinian posts, right? But let's analyze for a second, Don, because you have a great way of explaining this, and that's the goal of today, is to understand how they're screwing you, the mechanisms at play, right or left. It doesn't make a difference. Push back against the military-industrial complex, and we will shame you, embarrass you, smear you. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Listen to this, Don, and then we'll jump right into it.
I'll recognize as a gentlewoman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment today would drive the bill for Ukraine. Take each dollar amount in this act is hereby reduced to zero.
I love that.
You see, the United States taxpayer has already sent $113 billion to Ukraine, and a lot of that money is unaccounted for. This is a continuance of a sick business model that the American government continues.
I love this too.
The federal government continues to fund the military-industrial complex, and this is a business model that requires Congress to continue to vote for money, to continue to fund foreign wars, and this is a business model the American people do not support. They don't support a business model built on blood and murder and war in foreign countries, while this very government does nothing to secure our border. The American people are over $34 trillion in debt, and the debt is rising by over $40 billion every single night while we all sleep. But yet nothing is done to secure our border or reduce our debt. Inflation has driven out of control. Americans are suffering every single day. They can hardly afford their grocery bills. They can hardly afford gas in their car. They can hardly afford rent. And now mortgage payments are well over $3,000, where they were only just over $1,700 3 years ago.
Can you pause it real quick?
The youngest generation, young adults.
I mean, I want to go back and change the title to what I had it in the first place, Jamie. You can get us in that one shot really quickly, so I'm not like, Don, like, she sounds like a leftist sometimes. I mean, she gets back and she pivots right to her populist, right, the border and secure it, and I'm surprised she didn't use the term illegal aliens, but we'll give her some time to finish up and see if she did. But the military-industrial complex she talks about, right? I mean, she's asking for transparency. We talked about RFK wanting to put the U.S. budget on a blockchain, he says.
I
mean,
wish
that's pretty powerful. Is it not? Go ahead, Don.
I wish you actually let that run, because she starts with that business model, and she describes how it operates, what it does, blood and murder and etc. And then she describes whose blood and whose guts funds it. What are we not getting that we're supposed to get from the government with our money that's going there to do this stuff? And she comes back to the business model argument that she's absolutely right. That is exactly the problem. I would say her description of that is even a Marxist description of it, let alone a leftist one. Because I really don't see a leftist argument anyway that isn't Marxist. Most of the rest of it is bullshit.
You just said, woo. Marxist. Wow, like she wants to blow it up almost, right?
No,
That's
no, no.
amazing.
That's what
No?
people say that's Leninism and all that. That's not Leninism. Steve Bannon doesn't know shit about Lenin, or if he does, he's lying about it. People that say that Lenin
Yeah.
is somebody that wants to throw a bomb at stuff and blow it up, that's not it at all.
Well,
Lenin
listen,
was
I'm
here-
seeing it differently. When I say blow it up, I'm not saying kill the infrastructure completely. I'm saying just get rid of all the corruption within the system. You know what
Well,
I'm saying? I mean, that's almost
I haven't
impossible
heard
too,
her proposal here was to vote against this amendment. I thought that was cute too. I don't want to change anything in the bill except the numbers to 0. All the rest you can have.
That's it. That was great.
Listen, this is what I see here. Okay, and this is something that bears on the whole question. Of whether, I mean, the real question is, you've got people in Congress. You had 112 votes against this funding over the weekend. 112, all of them Republicans. You had 200 or whatever the hell it was. Every Democrat in the House voted for it, with the exception of 3, I think, that voted not voting. And like 101 or 102 Republicans voted in favor of it. So the bill carried. The funding is approved for Ukraine, for Israel, and for Taiwan.
And the TikTok, man, that doesn't even mention TikTok or ByteDance in the whole bill itself.
This is okay, but we're talking right here all this funding.
Yeah, I know, but they did all 4.
I know they did. Yeah,
they were efficient this week, Don.
Yeah,
they found a way to screw us even faster.
That's right. So
420, while everybody was stoned, they went and passed bills.
Yeah. So all right. So anyway, what you got going on, and we've seen this for a long time. And this is kind of what you're seeing that's driving you raising this question that you've been raising. How do you stop looking at how people identify as left, right, middle, and whatever, and look at common interests that you can organize around, so that you have, the numbers, the power to actualize the changes that you want. If there's no food for any of us, I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Nazi, a communist, or whatever. Order of the day, let's get us some damn food. And so we all line up and grab the food from that big fat guy who's sitting on top of a restaurant, and a bunch of cows and whatever the hell else they've got. And then we sit down and settle our business among us. But you have to sequence it, or there's nobody left. And so we're at one of those places. Also, the alignment politically, when you talk about left and right, this is an alignment. These are terms that are from the 18th century. Okay, from the late 1700s. The world has changed tremendously since then, and some of the classes that sat along that spectrum don't really exist anymore. Yeah. And most of the others that sat along that spectrum have been completely reconfigured because of the changes in the nature of the economy, the nature of work, the relationship of workers to their own work, the way it's done, mechanization, all kinds of other things. And so, these things, left, right, sideways, those are political designations. Reality exists on the ground, and these configurations that were created with ideological, sort of glue or whatever, 100 to 200 years ago, aren't necessarily adaptable or transportable to the world today. An example of this, that you have not just tenants that are angry over the money that could be going into housing going to Ukraine. You also have landlords and builders and developers who are having problems also, particularly as they look at the horizon, where right now they're riding an inflationary bubble.
Yeah.
But sooner
would that
or
be
later,
the petty bourgeoisie or the bourgeoisie, or does it make a difference that
they're going to have a marketplace? They're going to own a marketplace full of housing that no one can afford to pay them to live in.
Yeah.
Because the money went to Ukraine.
Exactly.
And so you have a commonality of interests a temporary alliance, a united front, whatever. In fact, in many areas of the economy like this, I'm not advocating this particular one, just illustrating the point with it, that you have to consider when you're considering who you will deign to sit down at a table next to organize against this big thing that's hurting everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the question behind what we're looking at tonight.
Wow. So true. So true. I mean, the thing that just keeps going through my mind is, can we get there, John? Can we get there? Can people find a way to get past the mentality? I mean, it is a program society, right? We have such a football mentality. This team versus that team, right? Like, people like to pick sides. People like to pick teams. It's part of what the social engineers know, so that we won't come to those conclusions that we might be left or right, but we can still come together because we understand there's a bigger mechanism coming and swallowing, eating us up. All our problems are the same, right? 95% of us, even more than that, probably 99%. I love the analogy you used last show. If we did an audit of the world, we'd see that 6 guys got most of this stuff and be like, hey, you son of a beeswax, you know what I'm saying? But it just seems like the mechanism that's at play, not just the media. I mean, they control, right, a lot of the information coming out from the entertainment industry, right? Taylor Swift has more pull than most of your congressional members. So, they make sure that people who are inside that bubble, or those people who are chosen to do that, I don't believe a lot of them. I mean, the people will slip through the cracks, but the majority of the people that are chosen in Hollywood are chosen because they can be controlled, right? And they can stay on message. So, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get to that spot. And it's very inspiring when you give us bread, right? Give us land, give us peace. It's commonality. We just keep walking together. Just keep walking together. Walk to the entity that is really your problem.
And that's kind of the solution to this problem too. I think it's not a matter of smashing anything. It's a matter of beginning and operating the alternative. That is what they started to do. The people that had been working under the old order after the Russian Revolution began working under the new order. They just went to work building it. And so the old forms just kind of, they were depopulated. They just collapsed.
I get it. That's a great way to look at it. Like, let's insert something, not take away from something. I like that.
I think the
people positive output.
I think the people who are sitting on top of this whole thing are of the belief that with the AI and hyper mechanization, that they can render whatever we do irrelevant and just operate the world without us. And there's a whole culture of people that among people that believe that this or that plan to extinguish us is operating, whether it's the stuff we see them striping the skies with, or these vaccines, or whatever thing it is, or just benign neglect, to borrow from our from Patrick Moynihan. The thing is that we've seen. I remember when Occupy appeared on the scene, I think in 2011. One of the first questions I asked the first time I was interviewed about it was whether we were looking at 1905 or 1917. And if it's 1905, how far off is 1917 at that point? What I'm referring to is the first Russian Revolution in 1905. It came on the heels of the defeat by Japan in a war with the Russian Empire, and also, I think in Crimea. I don't remember what happened with the Crimea War in 1905. And I misspoke a couple times in that, by the way. Doing an hour and a half recital out of my head at this hour, it's like 14 hours into the day for me. My 70-year-old brain farts every once in a while. So whatever happened, there were some challenges to the empire that were sort of added weight to the different contradictions that had already been presenting between sort of the industrial bourgeoisie and the emperor, and the old order of the royal family and all of that, the feudal order. And there was an attempted revolution, basically, that failed. And it did, however, succeed in changing, basically advancing the state from a feudal state to sort of a modified feudal state, sort of kind of in the British model, which
Yeah.
set the stage for what happened in 1917 when the whole revolution took place. And we have had, I think, it didn't actualize like the 1905 revolution here at all, but it did spread really fast. The first time there was first General Assembly that took place in Zuccotti Park in Manhattan, within 3 weeks had spread across the U.S. and many other parts of particularly U.S. allies in the West, Western Europe. It's clear that the soil is ripe for some sort of mass-based change.
Yeah.
The problem, there are other problems, like having a strategic vision. I mean, there's the greatest force in the world, in history of the world, arrayed against that happening, with the largest data set ever assembled, the most, to several orders of magnitude, processing power to crunch that data, surveillance of pretty much every square inch of the planet, God knows what else, to stop that from happening and to thwart it from actualizing any change in power relations in the world. That is sort of the objective condition that exists right now. However, every time humanity has thought that we're at a point where the new order is permanent, they were even saying that in 1991 and 92, after the Soviet Union was dismantled, we find that, in fact, it's not. Humanity changes, and most of humanity that's not free strives for that, and that is an irresistible force, no matter how immovable the object might be. So it is likely, in my opinion, that there's going to be another resurgence of something like Occupy, only it's going to need to be tied more closely to the ground and to the material operation of the society. It's one thing for everybody to go into a park out of the way and sit down and have long discussions about policy and such. And that's probably a necessary first step or early step for people to just try to get a handle on what kind of forms can we use to make decisions, and what kind of things are people thinking about, and what kind of things should we be talking about, etc. And you learn lessons and you move forward with those lessons learned. But the next lesson has to be, what do we do to start running the world in the way that we want? And there is really two models. One is to throw off the existing order, which means a revolution and or wars and or a great deal of destruction and death and maybe the end of our species. Or another way is it possible to just start operating the world that way? Just take your hands off their machines and start using our own labor and our own rules and and our own systems to start running the world. And I think that there's going to be a point in time where this conversation starts to be broad in the society, and experimentation with models is not only encouraged by each of us among others, but
I heard
oil and water and air.
I heard that process of going to the park and starting to talk about policy ideas was going to happen. But then the guy looked at his phone, his TikTok came on, and there was a place having soup dumpling sales, and they got distracted, and they blamed the Chinese Communist Party and went and had soup dumplings in New York. But I mean, I know it's kind of funny, but that's the thing. Like, I remember when a commentator once said, it's like, hey, we'd have a revolution, but then people would say, you know what, let's just take a time off and order some Domino's, right? There's so many things that they've got plugged in, and I'm almost phrased they're like kind of like breeding people nowadays to go directly into the matrix.
Well,
it's done. I don't see it going in the right way when it comes to this country. I see people distracted, not knowing, understanding what's going on. So, they have the collector's items, the kind of generations where they got everything, every album from every artist they ever loved, whatnot. They've seen every single movie that person's been in. They got the poster on the wall. They know everything about that person, but they can't name the congressman that lives down the street from them. And that's a very big hurdle we have to get past, Don.
Right.
But Don, we got to wrap this up soon, so we can't get too much more deeper into this. But the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jamie, if you can get the picture of what they put up on her on, I think it was the New York Post the other day. So you saw the speech. We heard her speech earlier. Just take the picture and bring it up, Jamie. I mean, holy cow. When you're anti-war, right? When you go against the mainstream, I mean, look at this. Niet Moscow Marjorie, and they put the Spies Like Us Russian hat on her. You know? I
Hey,
mean,
you can buy those. If you go
I have
to
one.
go to Borough Hall in Brooklyn in the wintertime, you can buy one of those for about $20. You might have to buy the medallion separately.